Hello, and welcome to a special PRWeek podcast in partnership with Real Chemistry. This is a podcast looking specifically at healthcare and pharmaceutical communications. And today we're going to discuss the evolving role of AI in patient engagement and advocacy. I'm Danny Rogers, the Editor-in-Chief of PRWeek, and I've got two expert speakers alongside me to give their perspectives. We have Elle Dickinson, Head of Integrated Intelligence at Real Chemistry, and Abby Drabble, who's Real Chemistry's advocacy lead. But before we dive into this topic, could you both introduce yourselves and share a bit about your roles at Real Chemistry?
Thanks, Danny. I'm Elle. Yes, I lead the Integrated Intelligence team. That's our fancy word for research and analytics. So we do all things from classic primary market research through to social listening, through to digital analytics. And most commonly, we're blending them all. So there'll be some mix of the three. You may pick up I've got a slight Welsh lilt. So for those of you listening, the Welsh one is me, Elle.
Thank you for having me, Danny. My name's Abby Drabble and I lead the international advocacy team at Real Chemistry. So our job is really to help counsel clients around navigation of the external landscape around patient engagement. There's a team of about 7 of us and, we really are embedded in the advocacy world, bringing the outside in and making sure that our clients have compliant strategies in order to engage with patients.
Fantastic. We're both very welcome, and it's a really interesting topic we're going to look at. So let's start by looking at AI in patient understanding. So Elle, how is AI being used to better understand patient needs and the nuances of various diseases, for example?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because my whole career, so the last 15 years, I've been mapping the patient journey and just interviewing patients, understanding what they've gone through, what they've experienced, what they need. More recently, in the last 5 years or so, things have really picked up pace and started changing in terms of how we do that and how we use digital insights and AI tools to better understand it. So now what we can do is we can, in addition to interviewing people or asking them to fill in surveys for us, what we can do is we can understand what questions are they typing into Google. And that's a really private space, right? But one we all rely on. What questions are they asking? What information do they need? What concerns are they really revealing on that platform? When they go into online forums and they speak to other patients, what are they saying they're going through? What are they asking questions about? And we can really bring that all together to get a much better understanding of their experience. And to give you an example of a project we did reasonably recently, by doing that, we were able to reveal totally new symptom areas. Classically, pain has been very difficult to measure, but now we're picking up and tracking this through Google, through online forum entries. It really rises up the rankings. So does fatigue, actually, which again is something that's often overlooked, but can be so dominant in their experience. And now we've got a way to better measure it, almost calculate it, and put it on the map with the other symptoms. So it really has evolved quite a lot in the last few years.
So it sounds like a real breakthrough in kind of getting inside the patient's mind and their behaviour patterns.
Yeah, and sometimes understanding them better than they understand themselves. Because it might be when you ask them, they don't remember how fatigued they were. That's become just a part of who they are. But actually we can show, well, actually, if you look back over the last few months, you've reported being tired, struggling to cope with work, struggling to look after your kids, and what's behind that. So we can point it out and reveal more about them than they may have even been able to remember themselves.
Yeah, so it's amazing how a robot can be more human than we are, effectively.
In some ways, not entirely, but yes, a little bit.
And Abby, from this human perspective, how does this AI-driven understanding impact the programs that your clients provide to patients?
Well, I think there are a number of things, but critically for the work that we do, we want to ensure that any strategy, any external engagement strategy we do is insights-led, not ideas-led. And, as Elle mentioned, traditionally we would run advisory boards. These take a huge amount of time to sort of gather that insight and that counsel in order to inform strategies. Now we have this sort of AI-led data pool that helps to govern the way in which we design programs of work for patients through our clients. So really, it's just about how the richness of the data that that AI sort of generates, can it really inform the way in which we work with our clients to ultimately impact patients on the flip side of it? So I think that's sort of the critical piece for us, is making sure that it builds a really comprehensive program for external engagement.
Got it. Okay, so let's look at personalized patient profiles as part of this. So can you explain how AI helps in creating more accurate and personalized patient profiles and how this impacts advocacy efforts? Elle?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a build on what I was describing where we map patient needs. This is all about having a really clear understanding of who is the person that you are trying to support. You know, everyone will be familiar with segmentation, where we work to understand what is that patient going through, what are their clinical needs, what is their symptom set. What we're doing now is we're using AI to enhance our understanding and understand people more as people than just as patients. So yes, you might have had a breast cancer diagnosis. You know, you might be clearly described as a breast cancer patient, but who else are you? Who are you in your everyday life? Are you a mother? Are you a partner? Maybe you're looking after your own mother. What about your work life? What about your social life? What about the hobbies you want to achieve? Now we can collect thousands of data points on these patients, but understand them as humans, understand them as people, and then engage them as such as well. So we are able to understand where they are in their everyday life, which websites are they visiting, what forums are they on, and then we can understand what content they're likely to engage with, what tone do they appreciate, you know, which influencers or spokespeople do they respond well to? And it really just gives us a bit more of a human perspective. So again, we're talking about robots, yes, but they're able to help us understand people more as humans. So it really is an enhancement.
And I think a build on that really is around how AI drives inclusivity, how we can build profiles that reach those hard to reach communities. Either that can be sort of culturally hard to reach communities or patient communities sort of within rare disease. So, you know, they are atypical, they are just sort of quite disparate and not that well connected. Building a picture of who these people are, what their preferences are, the kind of content, the tone, if we think about health literacy and the sort of the level of information that we're pitching at them, really allows us to be able to build a program that can properly engage them at the right level, at the right time and in the right places. So the inclusivity piece of it is very new to us, and health equity and diversity is a real challenge that we are facing within healthcare at the moment. So it sort of is it helps our clients address that big challenge that is always asked of them and then asked of us. So it's a good one.
That makes me think of the project that we did recently. It was in rare disease, and if you were to run a segmentation with rare disease patients, you may well struggle, or you may promise at best you'd get 50 patients in your sample. But by using AI, we've just been able to find 450 of these rare disease patients all around the world, which gives us a stronger sample than we'd ever achieved through traditional methods. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we can break them up and we can start seeing the underserved or the underreached groups within that cohort.
Yeah. And in rare disease, quite typically, particularly ultra rare, and we work quite a lot in rare disease, a lot of patients have never actually met other patients who have the same disease. And so there's like a real lack of connectivity. Through this data where we are finding, you know, many more patients with a given disease, patients are able to feel more validated in their own feelings because they recognise their journey in others. And so that creates a real sense of connectivity between and sort of network between organisations and individual patients as well. So it's got that going for it. It's doing a really good job for us.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any other specific examples or case studies where AI has really significantly improved patient understanding and outcomes?
One comes to mind. So we had a client recently who'd been struggling to recruit patients into what they called the patient partnership program. So that's almost like a steering committee of patients that sits internally to advise the company on various different decisions that, you know, it might be how they design their trials. It might be about the injectable device, for example. I think it had taken them about a year, if I remember rightly, to recruit 6 suitable patients to that group. So by building this rich persona that I described, we were able to understand them better, reach them in a more accurate, relevant place. Within a month, we'd recruited 68 patients, and we actually had to close the program far earlier than anticipated, and because it was so successful. So it just shows that just by understanding that person better, we can really reduce the time to reaching them and engaging them.
And it wasn't just more patients, but it was a much more diverse representation of that patient population. So we went in on the health equity angle to ensure that we were getting, a diverse voice, patient voice within the programme for our clients.
So I'm interested in this. Are there any operational efficiencies you found through your experience of using AI in this way?
I think yes and no. Look, we do use AI to enhance, and I'll leave Elle to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But the role of convening has not gone away, and it will not go away. We still need to bring people together, and we still need to explore issues, challenges, barriers through dialogue. And AI will not substitute that, because it's a discourse, it's a discussion that needs to evolve and feel real and authentic in the moment. But we do have tools that can enhance the way in which we work with a number of different audiences in order to reach consensus around key issues or challenges.
So we've got this great new tool is called swarm analysis, and it's built on the concept of creating hive minds. So bees, shoals of fish, they've all evolved ways of almost super intelligence. By coming together as a shoal, they have multiple different diverse perspectives, so they can see predators from multiple different angles, much better than an individual alone could. So it's built on that concept where we bring together diverse minds, diverse brains. As Abby said, that might be the advocacy groups with some patient experts, with some other advocacy leads. We bring them all together into this online platform, and they form a collective intelligence, and they work together as a group to answer a series of questions. And the AI helps understand how they're answering as a collective. So yes, we see where they start as individuals, but then we see how their answers evolve as they see what others think, so that they can come to a stronger collective decision at the end than they would have done alone. So again, it's an enhancement. It's a way of bringing together people who in a room may not be fully aligned, fully reaching consensus, but through the use of this technology, we're able to make it fun, bring in a bit of gamification to the group, and then align on singular outcomes. We agree what's the issue. We agree what's the next action that we're going to take. And the AI will tell us, how did they come to that consensus? What was the conviction of the group on that final outcome?
Amazing.
It also has a predictive element to it. So you can provide scenarios within this swarm technology, and respondents will choose which they think will be most effective or most efficient. So there's a predictive quality around it, and we find that is a really helpful tool in order to help inform patients about where the landscape is going and how it is shifting as a sort of like future gazing exercise. We can use the external stakeholders, so we can use the advocacy groups and the patients themselves to almost predict what they think the future is going to look like for themselves. So it's a really, really nifty tool to have.
Certainly is. Okay, so I'd like to focus on the core public relations aspect of this, which of course is the heartland of what we do, the industry does, what you guys do, which is all about building relationships and trust. So how can AI help here?
Well, that's a good question. And this is one that I can't completely say can be solved through AI. And what I do from the research perspective is we can map the relationships. I can show you which organisation is connected to which other organisation. How strong is that link? How frequently are they engaging with one another? I can show where the kind of nodes of networks are. I'll give Abby that very clear landscape map. But really, mapping is all I can do at this stage. I can't do much to strengthen that relationship. It's all just it's measurement at the moment.
Look, the reality is that relationships and partnership is built on trust, and that trust takes time, and there is no AI tool available that can sort of expedite that process. It is iterative, it requires commitment, and it's an ongoing engagement with the community, with patients, in order to build that trust and the partnership. And that is what strengthens networks. That's what sort of strengthens capability and capacity within, a given therapy area. So AI has a really vital role sort of upfront informing how we engage, but the actual engagement itself is personal, authentic human touch. It is peer-to-peer engagement, and that is the sort of critical aspect of partnership and relationship building.
We can measure it though.
You can measure it.
So we can come back in after a year. We can show you how that relationship might have evolved.
Yes. Yeah. we work to measure sort of trust within partnerships between industry and patient organizations. So we have a sort of trust measure that we have built with our clients and with consult from the organizations and patients themselves to sort of see what matters to both parties. And then we have a sort of matrix that allows us to assess the shift in that partnership over a given period of time. And I think this sort of thing is really critical. Thinking about the measure of that and how you're going to engage is really critical when a client is moving into a new therapy area for them. So that it's totally unknown for them. They don't know who the players are. They don't know what the landscape is. They don't know really what the patients need. And so all of that navigation up front, all of that assessment, that landscaping is vital in order for us to inform those strategies, as we've said before, and then start building those relationships, because often they don't exist within that sort of new therapy area space.
Yeah, trust right at the heart of communications, right at the heart of brands, right at the heart of
exactly
of business.
Exactly. And a lot of our clients talk about patient centricity. You can't just talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk, and that requires a lot of effort and a lot of time and resource.
So the future. Let's look to the future. What future trends do you both foresee in this integration of AI into how you engage with patients?
Well, from my perspective, from the research side, things are moving pretty quickly. We are already working on next-gen social listening. So up until now, I've described to you how we are understanding what people are typing into online forums or on social media. It's always been text-based. So it's always been what have people written down. But if you're a social media user yourself, you'll know that actually a lot of it has evolved into video content and imagery. And we're using AI to understand that video. So what are people viewing on YouTube? How well does that meet their needs? Where are the remaining gaps that we need to look to fill? So I think that's going to be a big shift in the next 2-3 years. And the other interesting thing we're introducing is content testing. So that might be that messages, be that adverts, be that concepts. You used to have to get somebody in a room and show it to them and say, okay, what's your reaction? Rate it on a scale of relevance, rate this on a scale of credibility. Now we are building generative AI agents using all the data that we know about the persona, the target audience, and we can program that agent to respond to content and tell us how credible is it? How relevant is it? How could it exactly? And what that does is it shortens everything. So testing phase used to maybe be 3 months long. We can shorten that right down to less than a month. And it's early days, but the last pilot we ran showed 87% consistency between the AI agent and human HCPs in a room responding to the content. So like I say, it's early days, but I think that could really ramp up.
Be a game changer.
Could be.
I think from my perspective, we often see with innovation early uptake within the private sector, so with our clients, the industry, but we see a lag with the sort of civil society and the patient organisations, and that is true of AI. So while industry and our clients are sort of engaging with it, utilising it, the patient organisations and the patients themselves are kind of interested in it. There is great appetite to learn and understand more about it, but they're not really using it. So I think that gap will start to be bridged, and we will start to see more engagement from a civil society perspective using AI. And I'd love to see that, because I think there's a real value to them using it as well. I think one of the things we haven't discussed is around, and Elle just mentioned it, generative AI. And you're going to have to help me fill in the blanks here, Elle. But, we have capability within the organisation, and we've used it with our clients and with patients to build a sort of almost visual map of their journey with a given disease. So through generative AI, they create, I don't want to say pictures, but imagery that is representative of how they feel about their disease and the journey that they've been on so far with it. And that is quite a powerful tool, because words can sometimes only take you so far as a patient. If you can't articulate how you're feeling, if it can be shown pictorially or through images, then that is a new language that patients can use with healthcare professionals in order to communicate about their disease. So I think there's a real space and appetite for that as well. And
that goes back to what I was saying about fatigue. When patients say, well, I'm really tired, and their partner says, oh, me too, I've had a really busy working week, you're thinking, no, that is a different type of fatigue, right? Yes, everyone gets tired at the end of a busy week. That is very different to the fatigue an MS patient suffers from. So they can go so far to using words, but once you can get the imagery in, you can really start bringing it to life and helping others understand.
Yes,
what
another enhancement tool for patients.
Yeah.
So finally, guys, what advice would you give to organisations looking to implement AI in their advocacy efforts?
I would say times have changed. You shouldn't be relying on traditional methods of research and analytics anymore. Yes, interviews have a role, surveys have a role, but if you are still doing the same thing you did 5 years ago, you're missing out on a very rich environment. You could be uncovering new insights, you could be uncovering new support needs. Give it a go. It's not as scary as it seems. Think about how you can bring in some of these new methods, these new ways of working to find out new insights and kind of refresh your understanding of what patients need.
But I would say that needs to be in partnership with a more traditional advocacy program, because if you are using AI to inform with rich data, you still need the other side of it, which is the human aspect, the human engagement piece. And really they work in lockstep together for the most impact with the community or with patients. So I think while AI has a very critical role in informing and governing how we engage, the work being done to actually engage should feel more traditional, should feel more of a partnership and have a human aspect to it.
So give it a go, but give it a go with people who know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Great. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed listening to what our speakers have had to say today and have picked up some useful tips to take back to your teams. Thanks so much to my guests today, to Elle and to Abby, for sharing your insights on, this fascinating world of AI in healthcare. And thank you to Real Chemistry for partnering with us on this podcast. I'm Danny Rogers. Thank you for listening and have a lovely day.